Physicology, simply put, is the emotional study of the body. The chop wood, carry water, old dogs that are just going to hit the gym, right? The grind it out kind of people. And the medical community now have to play nice in the sandbox together.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Well, that's where we stand right now. Physicology sees it very intricately. What I would like to see is everybody start paying attention and bring their own voice into this.
Hey, fitness friends, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and this is episode number 62. Talk to Michael Koth. So he is an author. He also has the website, myphysicology.com, and it's a really interesting and fascinating intro into the world of physiology, which is a fairly new field, and it's also an interesting journey into the brain of Michael. And before I get into more about him and what physiology is, quick call to action. So if you like what we're doing here, I could use your help. And it's not easy for me to ask for help all the time. Just ask those close to me. Please go to iTunes and subscribe to this podcast. That'd be fantastic. And if you feel the desire to do so, a favorable review would be warmly welcomed as well. So just go to iTunes, subscribe, rate us. That'd be fantastic. So what is physiology? Well, you're about to find out, number one, but it's really uncovering emotional pain, which would lead to physical gains. I'm going to put that as simple as possible, but he's got a book. It is called, let's see, I want to make sure I got this right. My Physicology Self-Reflection Journal. It was released in June of last year. And he has his website, myphysicology.com. He's out of Los Angeles, and yeah, it's just, it's an interesting field. So I hope you enjoy it. It's definitely something for fitness and health professionals to be aware of. And I hope you enjoy the value contained within this episode. Without further ado, Michael Koth, enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. I'm your host, Eric. And today I have Michael Koth. He is the founder of Physicology. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric. Really appreciate being here.
I'm excited. I love talking about, obviously this one very much falls into the format and the title of the show, The Future of Fitness, because you're starting, I guess, a thought movement within the industry, right?
Yes, exactly.
Before we get on to physiology, let's give the listeners a little bit of your background. I know it's extensive in fitness and health, so give us, a snapshot of what that looks like.
Okay. Let's see. I started fitness training in 1975 at Gold's Gym in Venice. I learned from some of the old traditional guys. A guy named Jim Morris actually taught me how to do training. He was a 3-time Mr. Olympia and various other titles as he extended that. It actually was before the word fitness training came to be. That wasn't put on the list of jobs until 1980 by President Reagan. So, so it was called just, my first job I was called a floor monitor. So been around the business for a while. Yeah.
So you've been in the industry for a while. You've seen things change. The fitness industry is young, right? Overall, other industries, so you've seen a lot of change. Let's get into, let's cut right to the crux of it. So tell us what physiology is and how it began.
Okay. Physiology, simply put, is the emotional study of the body. Okay. That's really what it means if you broke it down to Latin. What I've done with it over time, and this was accrued over an extensive amount of time, I use brain mapping, the neurological grid of the body, and cellular emotion. There's all those components were developed by differing people. I was blessed to be able to study with them over time. How it happened for me, I'll go experientially, which was predominantly the reasoning behind it. I just started noticing when I was working with people that they would talk about the same things when we were hitting certain areas of the body in fitness training. For example, doing pec deck for chest exercise. People would talk emotionally, because we're working around the heart, so to speak. And so I just started noticing some of that at first, coupled that with some of my experience, and I started jotting down and writing patterns of what I saw working with people. I've been blessed over the years to work with many, many different people throughout the past 4+ decades. And it started formulating into something more than just a thought. Putting it into practice, I started working with it, adding my own education to that. I went back to school about 18 years ago, and studied psychology, went through and got my doctoral degree from a place called Pacifica Graduate Institute. And then I also studied through UCLA at a place called the Center for Human Development under a man named Dan Siegel, who wrote a book called Developing Mind, in cognitive neuroscience, and saw a lot of the research that was going on there and put some of the cutting edge ideas that they had together with more the chop wood, carry water, brass tacks of fitness training. And that's really how Physicology came to be.
I love that. Chop wood, carry water. Yeah.
Yeah, like to go into the gym every day, what we do, right? Those of us that have been in
Grind
the industry,
it out.
Yeah, you just have to bang it out every single day, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah. So, we've talked a couple times, and I'm finally starting to get a little bit of a grasp on what Physicology is. And, my brain is starting to wrap around it a wee bit.
Yeah.
So, I'm guessing people who are listening are probably still a little unsure of exactly what it is. Can you give us maybe some practical examples of how Physicology has come into play, something you studied, something that we can really grab onto and digest?
Sure. Let's go to nutrition. Let's go to food. Okay. So think of your intestines as a brain.
Yep.
Okay, because there's some research out now that's talking about that a little bit, maybe in the past 10 years, but it's a brain. Okay. And so let's take our main brain, this one up here, and split it into two, right and left, right? We have books out like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, those sort of things, right? But so go with it for a second, where our right brain is first online in gestation, right? The right brain and the intestines are connected together automatically all the time. The messenger to that is the esophagus. So the messenger between is really a relay messenger that's in constant dialogue between the two brains, right? So the brain in our stomach only has one way of dialoguing with us, and that's through somatic expression, right? Which means the things that manifest in our body, how we feel it, how we experience it, how it talks to us. Oh, I've got a sore back, my shoulder's sore. So anything like that, right? But in neurological research, the intestines basically are, or the right brain it's not controlled through linear space and time dictation. In other words, how we see the outside world. It's chaos theory, it's quantum anything that's not contained, right? So that's our intestinal brain. That's inside the body, right? So when we talk about nutritional choices or implementing structure with our nutrition, we're trying to get the brains to talk to each other through our behavioral choices, right? And we see what that creates, the umpteen diseases or disorders or anything like that starts talking to us in a negative way, how we create that, right? So that's a good place to start, because I like to see us as, I tell everybody that I work with, look, you're the boss, you live in there, right? I need you to tell me your experience, like how you experience living in your own body. It's like stepping into a car, grabbing the steering wheel, putting the key in and starting it up and driving it, right? The body's the same in the way that I see things. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it's getting there. Give me another example.
Okay, let's go with an experience of mine. Okay.
Okay.
About 5 years ago, I was working in community mental health, and I thought I was depressed. And as it turned out, I'll cliff notes the story, but I had a series of 3 strokes that I didn't know I had until the last one. I lost my vision. I couldn't feel the left side of my body. I ended up homeless. I lost everything. I couldn't think rationally at all. The only thing that came to mind to do was to go to the gym and try to recover. So I started going to the gym 2 to 3 times a day. I'd walk for a couple of minutes. I'd get lost getting there, but I did everything I knew to do to to practice physiology just for recovery. At this point in time, I wasn't thinking about physiology. I was really just thinking about staying alive, right? So I had to implement my structure. I ate every 3 hours. I tried to do solid proteins, get my nutrients, all the things that we hear about, right? But I put it in really specific practice, right? And from that point, 5 years later, I'm recovered. No doctor would have thought that at all. Even my vision is back, and that they didn't expect any of that. So that's one example where it really synchronized everything for me, right? And so to be really honest with that, one of the things that was going on for me prior to that is I was more of a thought process person, not a feeling person. And I didn't even know that that was going on. And so the strokes for me became a correction, right? Things since then have been functioning in a much more fluid way, a way that I couldn't have even thought about before. But in my younger years, I had a lot of trauma. It's stored in my body. And at some point, the body's going to try to correct itself.
Wow. That's a story. I mean,
yeah.
That is, so when you look at the study of physiology, so when did it actually start? When did this whole thing start?
Well, let's see. That's a good question because it started over time. I've got another story for that. I was about 21 years old, and I was in rehab, and I was given a diagnosis of bipolar, right? So I could read in a book what bipolar meant, but I didn't understand it, not really. And so I don't really know what possessed me to do this, but I got a calendar and 2 magic markers, and I started putting blue for a good day and red for a bad day, and I did it for about 6 months. And as it turned out, my patterns were 25 good days to 5 not good days. And I'd be like, well, that sounds like the feminine process, right? It's like they have 25 to 5 usually from my experience of it. And I really wasn't quite sure. So it came up experientially. I was online one day. I was looking at just browsing through, and I was reading about the Big Bang Theory. I came on something and it talked about expansion and consolidation and how the universe was developed. And then I ended up in photosynthesis with the cell, and I started noticing the same patterns of all of this. And one thing led to another, and it was like, oh, okay, so we do this in the cell. You know, we do this in our systems inside the body. It's all inside and outside. And that was really where I started formulating what it was. It still wasn't really, it's still a work in progress. It's still a work in progress with regards to the vast properties of what the body is and can do. I don't think any of us really we've just barely hit the tip of an iceberg of that, right?
Yeah.
So, it's really been an organic process for me since about then.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, just when you talk about, I always get really excited about the research that's going on with gut function, what's happening there. I mean, that's incredible. I come from a family of people who have gut issues, and, I spare people the details, but it's been, as soon as I notice a direct, just an absolute concrete correlation and connection between my emotional health and what's going on in my gut.
Exactly.
And so I think that's one practical thing. So when you look at the work you're doing and the collective work of people within Physicology, when you're looking down the road, how do you see this starting to be applied by the fitness industry or the health industry? How do you see it starting to integrate into people's lives?
Well, to put it into practice, anybody can do it, first off, right? Because we all have a body, we all live in one. And quite frankly, we're all the boss of our own, right? So it's like, it's ultimately our responsibility for that. Some of the challenging things, like I tell people that I signed up for the Human School for Slow Learners, so I needed really big lessons to understand, right? And still I wonder sometimes, right? It's like, boy, really, was I just that blatantly idiotic, but it's like, so that's how I learned, like really blatant. I suggest people kind of get on board a little bit before they create that, because it's very easy to do. But it's mindfulness, really. It's about paying attention, to what we feel in our body, and not kind of chalking it off. Like I'll use guys, like we're supposed to put on game face the way I was raised. You don't show feelings, you don't, right? All of that stuff. And even though we're slowly but surely coming out of that, you look at heart attack rates, stroke rates, cholesterol levels, blood pressure, men are all higher than women, right? And a question I ask people that almost nobody can answer, Eric, do you know how many times a month men have? We have 4. Right? 2 out of every 7 days, men are hardwired for procreation purposes. So we get a hormonal flush that causes us to get the nicknames, oh, men are all dogs, or they think below the belt. Well, that's our times of month. We have 4 of them, right? And if you look at some of the processes of men versus women, one of them that I like to use is dairy products, right? Men between 20, we break it down in our bone marrow. Women break it down in their chest process, right? So between 25 and 32 in men, the skeletal structure starts to slow down, if not stop, right? So that's the first system that goes offline. So after 35, we need calcium, but we don't have any place to process dairy. So you look at what happens with the men body, and I'm speaking generally right now, but if you look at statistical data or medical data, men are always higher in all of these areas, right? And it's like what I believe to be true is one of the effects of that, or the reasons for that, is what we're talking about right now, right? It's something that can be practically shifted. Now, I'm not telling people not to eat any dairy products or something like that, but I am saying be very mindful of this. And if you have a sensitivity to that, if you notice it within yourself, pay attention, right? The body's trying to tell you something, and the only way it can tell you if you're not getting it is a stronger lesson, right? A stronger message, which is going to be some affect. It's the only way it's got.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you guys doing any kind of clinical research or doing any kind of studies right now to start, building empirical data and things like that?
I'm right on the precipice of that right now. I want to start to do group work, right? And in twofold, I want to work with diabetes and stress and anxiety. So for example, because there are 2 very blatant ones, there's over 200 known degenerative illnesses through stress and anxiety, right? And so I wanted to kind of just diversify whereby we could collect some data with, say, for example, a class with diabetes. Well, what would that look like? Well, that would be some exercise, some strength training, and some group processing, group talking about doing it together, right? I'm very big on nobody does this alone. I certainly didn't. I needed an army of people to recover from my strokes, and still need even more of an army of people to even launch Physicology, right? It's not a I thing, it's a we thing. And so, I encourage anybody that's interested in this to join in, right? The more the merrier as far as I'm concerned with this. And I'm always open to other people's information, other people's ideas, like how might that fit within, because, I don't see Physicology as I see it more fluid, that it's an integrative process, right? We're integrating pretty much everything that functions within the body: emotion, thought process, behavior, all of those things. And those are very vast topics. So lots of room, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And have you, what resources do you have available? Have you written anything, or do you have studies out? Or
here, one thing. Happen to have it right here.
Yeah.
This
just happens to be here.
Yeah. I just thought you might ask me that, but it's like, my site is myphysicology.com.
Okay.
What I just lifted up was a work journal that gives people an opportunity to do their own writing. I ask some questions. I just try to stimulate some thought process. And then if people want to, they can send their writing to me, and I'll give them some feedback and some ideas. It's very much a collaborative process for me. It's not me saying this is what you need to do. It's not about that. It's about you finding your way. right? It's just like how I work with people with their nutrition, for example. It's like, I'll tell them, okay, think of this as a brain and your intestines as a brain and the esophagus as the messenger. And it takes about 3 hours to digest food. So your body's going to need something every 3 hours, right? And if it doesn't, it's going to start to feed off your own muscle tissue, which is going directly against what we're trying to do, right? So I'll tell them that. And then it's like, okay, there's 1 gram of protein per pound of the body of your goal weight for what you would like to do on strength training days. I mean, it's all that basic information, right? But how we get there, that's each person's individual process and their own journey with it, right? And so it's like, for me, it happened where I needed to deconstruct old thinking, right? It's like, mom and dad did the best that they could, but I see it as when we go and purchase a new car, the second we drive it off the lot, it's depreciated. So is the information we get. By the time we're getting the information, it's already a day late and a dollar short, right? So in that area, it's got to be experiential and trial and error, right? So that's how I work with it. But if people want to get involved, it's myphysicology.com. Mm-hmm. Currently, right now, all my information's there. The site is there. There's options to participate if you would like to. And I'm just really getting started with this in these ways. So I'm also open to suggestions for those that might be interested in moving further with it. It's kind of a tabula rasa right now. So I'm all for it.
What will people find when they go there? Like, I'm wondering, and I haven't looked at your site. I will right after this, but or the book or the site, like, do you have, exercises that you have people do just to start building awareness or that mindfulness around what's going on with their emotions and their physical?
Yeah, well, the first thing that I would suggest they do, and I'm giving it away right now in the book, you can download it from free on the site. Write out your own ideas in the work journal, right? The book I ended up is the work journal for the book that's going to be coming out. I have a book coming out. It's called It's Not Rocket Science, right? Even though part of the book is going to be about kind of rocket science, it doesn't do us any good unless it's in terms that we can all work with, right? And so I figured somebody had to do the doctoral thing and get all of that stuff. That's fine. I don't talk in those terms most often. But just to get it going, that's kind of the thing. You could do your own process in the workbook journal, and then we can move forward from there. So that would be the first thing. And then from that point on, I'm available to talk in this way, or if you want a phone call or dialogue that way, that's also available on the site. And then we could talk about specific tailored exercise or tailored programs for each person.
Interesting. Very cool. So, myphysicology.com.
Yep. That's it.
Well, this is interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's like, it's all stuff that we're semi-aware of, but now to kind of put into, and if, give something a name seems to always be a very powerful thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So very cool. So everybody, anything else, Michael, that you think is, especially for the fitness professional that they should check out, or reasons?
Well, I think, for the fitness professional, for that particular part of culture, what I see is exactly what Physicology is doing. Is it's an integrative process. We see things that were broken apart in special, you have psychology, physiology, neurology, psychology, all of these differing things, sociology, and they've all been studied separately. And I think we're moving into an era, we can see it in music, where we have country, western, and rap songs combined, or any number of differing things, right? You can see it in that way, and I think it's happening in our industry too. So what would that mean? Well, that'll mean like the chop wood, carry water, old dogs that are just going to hit the gym, right? The grind it out kind of people, and the medical community now have to play nice in the sandbox together. Yeah. What does that look like? Well, that's where we stand right now. Physicology sees it very intricately, in many, from a cellular standpoint, that's fine. But we still, what I would like to see is everybody start paying attention and bring their own voice into this so that it becomes a something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the fitness professional and the health medical professional are now being forced together due to the technological advances of the data that's available, right?
Absolutely.
So, it's an interesting time, and I mean, this is an interesting study. So I think it's great. I appreciate coming on, Michael. So everybody, this is Michael Koth, and you can find him at myphysicology.com. And thank you for your time. Thank you for the research you're doing. It's always cool to see new things being forged, and even if it's a combination of old things being in a new light, that's really cool. So
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming
Eric, on. I really appreciate the opportunity. You're awesome. Thank you very, very much.
All right. We'll talk soon, Michael.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, fitness fans. Don't leave yet. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and I want to personally thank you for your support and listening to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. If you have a few minutes, I would greatly appreciate if you went to iTunes and gave us a favorable rating, as well as go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. That'd be fantastic. If you know of anybody who'd be a great fit for this show as a guest, please hit me up at eric@fitnessmarketingalliance.com. That's Eric with a C. Also, I have 3 questions for you. Number 1, are you a fitness professional who's been in the industry for over 7 years? Question number 2, do you have an online revenue stream or multiple online revenue streams? Question number 3, are you ready to break loose from your local market and take advantage of all of the opportunity out there in the online world? If you are, I want you to go to fitnessmarketingalliance.com/mastermind. This will lead you to our Level Up Mastermind group and all the information that you need to know. This is a group for high-level thinkers within the industry who are ready to break free. So go check it out. It's fitnessmarketingalliance.com/mastermind. Let us know if you have any questions. Thank you again for listening. I greatly appreciate your support. We'll keep it up from our end as well.